Hey guys, my name is Rick Navarro, and this is the Pixel Launcher Retouching Academy. Today we're going to be talking about frequency separation, what it is, what it does, how you can use it in your workflow. Stick around because this is where we teach you how to retouch like a pro. All right, let's jump right into it. So, frequency separation. You may have heard this. This has been around for a while. It's a technique where you're basically separating the image into frequency layers. Now, frequencies kind of work like sound. So if you know anything about sound, sound works in waves, sine waves, and in the image world, it's kind of no different. So basically what frequency separation is doing is separating the frequencies, the high and the low frequencies, so that you have a little bit greater level of control in your image. So let's just go ahead and get right to it. If I could just illustrate this for you, because we're very visual people. So your image, every image can be broken up into two frequencies. Your images can be broken up into what are longer frequencies and what are tighter frequencies, or what you could call a low and a high. So these lower frequencies, this one here represented by the green line, are where you're going to see a lot of the tonal values and the colors. The blue line here represents your high frequencies, where you're going to see a lot of texture, where you're going to find a lot of detail that you might be able to find in the hair or in skin, or in sometimes in some cases even clothing. And why this is important for us is because if we separate them, we can edit them on an individual basis as opposed to the entirety of the image. Now, this is a great technique, okay? What I have found in a professional capacity is that it doesn't work for everything. I mentioned in another video on flawless skin retouching, which you should check out right here, that it's really about the tool for the job. So if in one situation you're doing a lot of beauty work, and beauty, if you don't already know, beauty is basically anything from about here up. Think hair, think makeup, think close-up fashion, like products, still lifes, anything that shows a face from about here up is considered beauty in the photography and photographic professional world. And that would be true for anything retouching wise as well. This is where this really shines. This technique basically makes an entire body of just this section of the image. Whereas an actual full body image, obviously the image is going to be further away, and you're not going to have as much detail or detail that's seen. Now, again, in the previous video, I talked about usage and how usage is everything. Usage will dictate your workflow, or it should, because you're not wanting to spend 3 hours on a full body image when it's only ever going to be seen on a phone. It'd be a foolish waste of time. And in a professional capacity, if you're working for yourself and you want to retouch right down to the pore, that's one thing. If you want to get every meticulous skin shade, bump, and hair like down to brains, then by all means go do that. But in a commercial capacity, oftentimes you're working up against deadlines, so you are constantly struggling with the balance of retouching in a capacity that is the most efficient way. You need to balance out the amount of time per image. You need to balance out the quality of the image. You need to balance out how much are you getting paid for this image. Is a client paying you for your time? And if they're paying you for your time, are you using that time the most efficiently as possible? So when you are choosing a method of retouch and what you're going to do in terms of your pipeline and your approach, you have to be strategic. Frequency separation is really great when it has its place. I know high-end retouchers who refuse to use it because it honestly just creates more steps. And then I know people who swear by it, and that's all they do on every image they do because it gives them that greater level of control. For me personally, it's really about the tool for the job. So if the job dictates that and it's a tight image and there's going to be a lot of detail in that tight image, even if it is only going to be seen on a phone, but because the image is so tight and there's so much detail that you can actually see some of these details on the phone, then I'm going to go ahead and use frequency separation. If it's a lot of e-com catalog types of images where I've got a large volume of images to go through, but I'm only going to, they're only going to ever be seen on a phone. They're going to be seen from far away with maybe a little bit of a zoom factor, but the images are going to only be seen for a short period of time. It's not going to live in print for a very long time. Then I'm probably not going to use frequency separation because of the amount of time and the cost opportunity that is there. I'm going to show you today the steps on how to break them down step by step if you wanted to do it manually. But then I'm also going to show you and provide for you an action in the show notes that will automate the entire process, the first 5 or 6 steps. And then you won't even have to worry about it. Now, one caveat to that is that every image is going to be a little bit different. The amount of some of these filters that we're going to apply may change with the type of image and how high res they are or how low res they are. But you'll see that once you get the automated process, you can easily make quick adjustments and move very quickly. Okay, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. I've already pre-selected some images from clients that I've worked with in the past that I think will serve this purpose really, really well. This is one image. It's already been worked on, but we're going to start from scratch just for the sake of what we're trying to show you here today. So the first thing you're going to want to do, let's go ahead and get rid of that, like we're starting from a fresh scratch image. Again, this is like a beauty shot. Again, shoulders, chest and shoulders up, a lot of detail in the skin. As we can see, there's a lot of blemishes here, and as well as just kind of tonal adjustments that we want to make, like around the eyes, some texture issues here with skin and a little flyaway hairs that we're going to go ahead and address. I'm going to show you 2 different methods on how you can get basically the same result, and I'm going to show you why you might use one over the other. Actually, it's really, really simple. Some people believe that the algorithm on this first one I'm going to show you is a little bit more accurate, so that it sets you up for a win in your retouch right from the beginning. The other one tends to be a little bit faster. Actually, all of them become really, really fast once you start using the action, so you can jump right into your retouching. But they're both built off of the same premise, and you can kind of pick one which suits your workflow, once you see how they work. All right, so here we go. Here's this image. This first one we're going to show you is with the apply image filter, and in both sets you're going to duplicate the background image twice. Go ahead and turn them both off, and well, actually turn that top one off, and let's just go ahead and label this bottom one here low frequency and the top one high. Okay, so on this low one, we're going to go ahead and go to a Gaussian blur, and what I'm basically trying to do here is eliminate any of these finer details, these textural details. So I'm going to crank this up a little bit, probably right about there, so I'm not getting so much of the particulars. Okay. Then I'm going to go to my high frequency layer and go to image, apply image. And I want to use the low frequency layer I've just created. I'm going to set this to add. Opacity should be 100. Scale is 2. I'm going to click on the invert. I'm going to hit OK. As you can see here, if you're familiar with Photoshop, it kind of gives you what you're going to get in a high pass filter anyways. Then I'm going to set this to linear light. And as you can see, we're kind of back to where we started. If I toggle on and off between the base layer and what I just created, there's no change. It's back to the base layer. Okay, so on this top layer here, you'll notice that I've got texture detail, and on this bottom layer, I've got color and tonal value. Okay, and you can edit them separately to give you a greater level of control. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Again, here's the second way, and this is with high pass filter directly. That first method I just showed you is supposed to be more accurate, and I guess you could say that's kind of preferentially based. You know, in my professional experience, you know, in terms of accuracy, you know, you could split hairs on that. You could go either way. So I like to go with what's the most time efficient. And honestly, that's going to be through using an action. But if we're breaking it down so you understand the fundamentals of it, you know, you can use this technique as well. So again, I'll go ahead and group those. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I've already created it. But I'm going to show you the second one now. Duplicate those. And let's just go right to the high pass filter. Other high pass. I like this one because it gives me a greater level of control kind of right in my hands, right from the slider. I'm going to kind of visually look at what is being added and what's not. What's tricky here is obviously you don't want this level of detail added. Now I'm getting more tonal values and I'm not really looking for those frequencies in that range. I'm looking for the frequencies that are just going to allow the texture. Now if I slide it all the way down, you can see that I don't get any detail here at all. So let's slowly bring this up, and now you're starting to see some of that texture come through. Let's just go 3.8. It's kind of a nice balance. So I've got a lot of the texture detail, but I don't have too much color and tonal value in here. Okay, you can see all the fine details, the wrinkles on the skin, the hair, and this gives me texture in the chest as well. In fact, let's just bring it up just a pinch. Right about there. You have a natural fall off with the depth of field happening with the neck, and the focal point is going to be right on the face anyway. So I think this is going to be a happy balance. Again, going to set this to linear light. Come here to the Gaussian blur. Now look how fuzzy it is. There's a trick I want to show you. This does not look like our original image right here. And that is because I over blurred it over here in the Gaussian. So what you want to do is go back. I'm just going to go back here to just before that. And if you'll remember, I believe my high pass was set to about 4.2, 4.1-ish. So I'm going to apply that same level of blur to that layer. So go back to Gaussian. Let's just go ahead and go 4.2. Again, I've lost some finer details, even though this is a little bit more in focus. So what you want to do is use the exact same number. I'm going to leave it just for time's sake, because I actually like what's happening to the skin right now. But again, you can see how one might be a little bit more precise, and also how it can kind of be built on your own preference. So this is the second way. I've got them both already created here, and then now it's just your basic retouch as you normally would. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of an advanced technique that will again allow you a little bit greater level of control. What you want to do is create a new layer in between here. You are going to set your brushes to your stamp. Like if you're using a stamp tool, you want to have it set to current and below. And since I'm working in between here, that's going to allow me to work on some of these tonal values in between without actually messing up the layer. Now, personally, this is just an option that you can use here. You can kind of use a low opacity to kind of build up and control some of these layers. Actually, I'm going to raise it up just a little bit, and you'll see that I'm cleaning up some of that tonal value, but because I haven't done any of the actual blemish control yet, it's picking it up. So let's go ahead and do that first. Now I'm using content aware fill to kind of quickly move through some of these tones. And then if it doesn't remove what you're trying to remove automatically, go ahead and do both edits on both sides of the skin. So those are texture edits. Let's go down here do the color. Actually, let's go ahead and put that layer in between, as I was saying. So if I want to sample some of this color now from this good skin over here, now I can kind of come in here and build up with a low opacity brush. I'm pretty high right now because I'm moving quickly and I feel like I'm fairly certain of how this is going to react. But what you could do is you could drop your opacity down of your brush and build it up very slowly to kind of lighten maybe some of these darkened areas. As I've mentioned in some of these previous videos, you're going to want to zoom in and zoom out so that you can see at different distances what shadows you may or may not be creating. You see, here's a before and an after. We flattened out some of that tone. Okay, but yet we have all this skin texture maintained. Okay, so as you can see, we've got all of that skin texture maintained, and some of the tone has been flattened out a little bit to kind of smooth out her forehead. And you basically go through the entire image like that, and that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, as I mentioned before, I like to do, like, if I don't see, if for some reason like my eyes catch something that is what looks like it's on the texture layer, but it's actually on the low frequency or the color or tonal layer, I'll go ahead and apply the same, just right as I have it selected, I'll apply the same content aware fill to both the high and the low frequency, so there's no guess, and then the selections are precise. So that's what I just did there, and see, already we're getting a nice kind of cleanup very, very quickly. Well, it hasn't been quick, and that's my point. When I'm using this, it really kind of just depends, but because this is a beauty shot, I might spend a little bit more time. So let's go ahead here and fix some of these tonal values that we're seeing. I'm actually going to merge these two because my personal preference is to work directly on this blur layer. Sometimes I like to turn it off and only work on that one because I'm not scared of losing any of the texture, and I'm only really using some of these tonal values. I'm gonna pull them out. Now, I mentioned in a previous video that I like to pull sometimes from areas that are completely not relatively close, and that's to kind of just flatten out the skin. Sometimes, like when you pull like just like that, like you pull like a closer area, it doesn't work as well. Sometimes it does, it just really depends on the image. But I think like I did that one far, so actually I'll do this one, I'll show you. And I'm just gonna sample from an area close by. And again, I'm sampling from several areas. But you see how, like, this is a perfect example how it's just requiring a little bit more finesse on getting some of that light out. Now you can see how those dark patches under her eyes are starting to flatten out, but the beauty is I haven't messed with any of the texture, so the skin remains it maintains its integrity. Then you can leave it on to kind of see how it's affecting it. The cool thing about frequency separation is once you get the hang of it, you'll start to kind of visually separate the texture and the tone before you even start an image. You can kind of, your eye will get trained to see tone and texture as two separate things. And then you'll start to see where, oh, okay, over here I need to make a tonal adjustment. Over here I need to make a texture adjustment. And that helps you move through the image really quickly. Some of the discoloration in her chin, kind of flatten it out. These little cheek pockets, the jowls, you'll find jowls on everyone from babies to to senior folks. Like I've worked with incredibly beautiful models that still have jowls. I've worked with celebrities who still have jowls. That's one thing I'm always kind of looking at to remove, and I see them left in a lot of these images, and I always wonder why. I'm like, there's always a bit of a tonal shadow that happens right here at the corner of the mouth. No matter how pretty, how perfect, how flawless, how beautiful the model is, young, old, professional model or amateur, everybody's got it. It's just a natural gravity that affects our face. You can use a combination of the patch tool or the stamp tool to kind of work through some of these areas. Flatten them out. Again, you can start with a lower opacity and build up, which is definitely a safer way to work. It's a very fine balance between realism and pushing the image too far, so that becomes a stylistic and a preferential kind of thing based off of your own preferences or the client's. Now I start to work back and forth to kind of adjust some of these things that I might be seeing or catching as I'm very close or as I'm far away. But you can start to see how frequency separation is pretty awesome, but it's also really time consuming. So it just kind of depends on your client, the workload, your pipeline, if you have a staff, if you've got people that are working with you, or you're responsible for doing this, let's say on e-com versus like a lifestyle or like an editorial type of shoot, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do, even with the action. If the images are very far away, as opposed to very close up like this one, it may not make a whole lot of sense to do. I feel like this chin is a little blotchy. Now, color correction is an entirely separate thing, so keep that in mind. While color will be influenced here, your approach at retouching it can be completely different. I don't know if you can see what I was just doing, but I'd gone too far. So that's such a great example of issues that you may run into. But if you'll notice, I sampled from another part of the face to bring that cheek, that highlight, that fatty part of the cheek that's getting hit by the light back in. It had flattened out and it had disappeared. So basically what I did is I pulled from the cheek over here and sampled it to bring it back in, and then it grabbed a few other things, but it didn't matter because once I had the shape that I wanted, then I could get rid of maybe some of those other areas that weren't very flattering to the face. Okay, so now we're controlling. This is all before dodge and burn, which is going to be an entirely separate video. But again, this is helping you understand how frequency separation can really give you great skin, even though it's time consuming. Okay, I've maintained all the textures, still feels very real. I haven't even gotten into dodge and burn, but that's basically your frequency separation. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. Here's another image that I think will work really well for this. But now I'm going to show you how the action works. I've provided a link in the show notes. Once you get your actions installed, or if you don't know how to install it, you can install them right here if you open up your actions palette and you click on your triple lines over here, and you go to load actions. You can load your action, and the action that I've given you here is called PL frequency separation. Once you have it loaded, if your image is 8-bit, which most images are, if it's not, you'll know right here, 1632. Okay, so if you're using the action that I'm going to provide for you in the link in the show notes below, you'll see that you can install them through here. You want to just go through load actions. Make sure your actions palette is up. If it's not, go to window and actions, and then you'll hit your options bar here and go load actions. There it is, PL frequency. I've already got it loaded, just wanted to show you that. And you're gonna make sure you wanna start on a completely brand new image and know what your image color bit is, whether it's 18 or 6. You've got options for both in there. So go ahead and click on 8. I know that this one is an 8, and you're gonna hit play. Here's that dialog that comes up. Remember, it's gonna be different for every image. So I'm blurring out all the details, making sure I have just tonal values here. I'm gonna hit OK. And you can see the high frequency has already been created for me. And I'm basically ready to go. Now I would just proceed and retouch this image as I normally would. Again, this is separate from dodge and burn, which is another technique in combination with this one that will really give you beautiful images. But for now, that's your frequency separation. So you can see how much faster it is once you have the action, once you understand the concept. Then you can apply it accordingly and not worry about duplicating and applying image and then all this other stuff. So it helps you move once you have it in your workflow. You can incorporate that to process out images much quicker. Again, personally, I still wouldn't use it on a large batch of catalog images, but if it's a one-off, a lifestyle, or a smaller batch that's more concentrated, that needs a higher level of quality, then it's phenomenal. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you really enjoyed that. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you can get notified when we create future content. If you've got ideas for future episodes or something that you don't know or something that you're just trying to figure out, comment in the comment section below. That's gonna help us out a lot, and it's gonna help us create content that's relevant to you. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.